So has gaming gone too far? That's the question that a couple of major publications are running with in response to the Battlefield 1 trailer, which showed things like mustard gas attacks, beatdown with clubs, sword fighting. And so, this is the type of pussified material that you would expect from the mainstream media, from journalists who have never, touched a video game. But what's a little surprising is that this is the narrative coming from major publications within the gaming industry. And so the arguments that these articles that I've been reading, they all present basically the same type of talking points. So I'm just kind of condense them up. And so one of the major issues that they have is this claim that, World War I should be off limits because, that was just a horrific war that featured chemical weapons, and it was the beginning of modern age weaponry, and it really was like the first modern war. No doubt it was a horrific war. Trench warfare, chemical weapons are something that I can't imagine how terrible it must have been to be there and experience all this, especially whenever you're a kid, because a lot of these people weren't of age to even, drink nowadays. But what is this BS about picking and choosing which wars we can use as backdrops in video games? Hello, McFly, all war is horrific. All war is terrible. All war is gruesome. And it is an experience that no one in their right mind would wish for or hope to experience. And so this argument is as flawed as the morons who try to say that violence in video games causes violence. There is no war game ever that's going to simulate the real thing. We're not going to be spending weeks at a time in a trench in Battlefield 1. You're never going to smell burning flesh. You're never going to watch the last breath of one of your friends escape their body. You'll never know what it's like to wonder if these are the final moments that you're going to spend on Earth. That maybe you're never going to see your family or your children again. You will never get that in a video game. And you see, that's what separates us normal folk from the retards. We can actually distinguish the difference between a video game and real life. And we know that they're nothing alike. They aren't even trying to be alike. It's simply a setting. It's fantasy. And I'm reading where this senior editor at this publication says that he can't stomach it. Like he was just sitting there feeling sick watching this trailer. And I've got to wonder, how the hell did you become a senior editor at a site that reviews video games? How did you play any video games growing up? You're okay with killing aliens, you're okay with killing mercenaries, but, killing soldiers in a World War I setting, that's just, taking it way too far. Give me a break. And then one of their next arguments is, well, World War I is different because the battle between good and evil isn't as clear as what it is with modern day wars or even with World War II, for instance, whenever the world was battling Nazis. So they think that, war is always like some Star Wars episode or some Star Wars movie where there's the Force and then there's the dark side. And if you believe that's what war is, then you're really naive. That's not the way it works, snowflakes. Not even in World War II is it cut and dry, good versus evil, black and white. There were a lot of Germans who weren't Nazis. There were soldiers who wore the Nazi uniform who didn't agree with what was going on. There were Nazis who tried to assassinate Hitler. And, not only that, there was a huge number of casualties that took place between the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany. So, it's not exactly a Disney story about good versus evil when you've got the Soviet Union versus the Nazis. And the same day with modern day wars. They're also horrific. Maybe you didn't realize that some U.S. troops in Iraq were exposed to some sort of chemical during the Gulf War that caused many of them to have issues to this very day. Maybe you didn't realize that there are Muslim fighters helping to fight extremists in ISIS. And maybe you didn't realize that there are a ton of people out there who have experienced real war who like to play video games like Battlefield. And they suffer from PTSD. They've been wounded. And this is their way of relaxing. This is like a therapy session for them. And it's not because they wish they were still out there in a real world. It's because they can sit back and enjoy this as a form of entertainment like most normal people can. They can do it safely in their house and play competitively with their friends. World War I was complicated, which I think is actually all the more reason for this to be a good game. I mean, this is a good way for DICE to tell a story, and maybe a story that people haven't heard before. I mean, there were, I believe, like 100 countries that were at one time involved in this conflict. So there are a ton of stories to be told, and in fact, a lot of stories people haven't heard, and I think some of the benefits are actually already happening today. I mean, just look at how many people have been researching the Harlem Hellfighters after DICE announced that they were going to be a part of this game. And a lot of people had no idea who they even were. But they were a group of black soldiers who weren't given any respect by the U.S. government. And this was a period where it was common belief that blacks couldn't even fight. And then it turned out they were one of the most badass groups on the battlefield. So, I mean, honestly, for all the crying and whining about, glorifying war and promoting heroism, keep shedding those tears. I'm personally glad that groups like this can actually get the recognition that they deserve. There are countless tales of heroism during wartime. There's nothing wrong with telling those stories. There's nothing wrong with enjoying those stories. It doesn't make you a warmonger. Like, I'm pretty damn close to a pacifist. I understand that there are times where war is needed. There are bad people out there who, if they got enough power and control, they would love to overpower you. They would like to put you under their control. At the same time, I was against the Iraq War. I'm against what we're doing over there in the Middle East. I say we come home, we use all that money to build up our own country. But I'm not a warmonger. But I enjoy the hell out of these video games. I enjoy the hell out of learning history. I enjoy hearing these tales of heroism, and I can sit here and enjoy all this because there's been a lot of patriots who shed their blood to allow me to sit here and do this. So, at the same time, video games, they're not a history lesson, but they do have the ability to bring attention to certain events, things that maybe you didn't know or have heard about before. And so maybe it piques your interest enough to go out and do more research again. But a lot of times this is just fantasy. And again, it's just a setting. It's just a backdrop. In the end, this is simply a video game. And I, for one, can't wait to play it. And I'm not alone, because right now Battlefield 1 is the most liked video game trailer ever on YouTube. And, maybe these snowflakes just needed some clickbait and wanted to take, a controversial stance. But if you can't stomach a war game, if you can't stomach looking at a trailer for a game, then maybe you shouldn't have the job of reviewing one. So if you want to read these articles, I'll leave links down below. That does it for me, The Red Dragon. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Are you listening? Damn.